Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Big T Anderson. This is Off Color by Effortlessly Uncool. Let us begin.
Aerith!
She grimaced. The high-pitched call was offensive to her ears as the pressure at the bridge of her nose was to opening her eyes. Knitting her brows together as she processed the room through the mental fog, Marlene stood, peeking her head through the bedroom door.
Oops, sorry. Tifa asked you to come downstairs. The broth is almost ready.
Marlene said softly this time through her hand, which clamped over her nose and mouth, as if the act would be enough to safeguard her from the airborne pathogen currently occupying the residents of the apartment above 7th Heaven as hosts. Aerith cleared her throat, sinking lower into the duvet. Ask her to bring it to me, sweetie. Marlene tiptoed closer, drawing back the sheets and caressing her forehead with her free hand.
Tifa wants you to get up. She said you'd feel better if you did. I bet she did.
She huffed, clutching her arms as she heaved herself upright. Marlene offered a hand to help her out of bed before running downstairs. Aerith shook her head, though immediately regretted the action as a wave of pain rolled between her temples. She was unable to stop the low groan that came from her mouth, and grabbing the blanket strewn over the chair from the last time she ventured out of the confines of her room, she began the arduous walk down to the kitchen. Cloud was hunched over the kitchen table, a blanket draped over his own shoulders and apparently wallowing in his own self-pity as he had held his head in one hand with a spoon in the other. Tifa's voice held its usual loftiness, but her appearance seemed screamed those contradictions to the sound as she stood by the stove, looking in the direction. I don't need you stabbing yourself in the face because you can't see where the spoon is. His only response, a rather discouraging whimper, as he stooped further into the chair.
Cloud,
Aerith rasped, grabbing the box of Kleenex and tossing it vaguely in the direction of the kitchen table.
Get a grip. It's a cold.
I feel like death warmed over.
And the pair of you look like it, too.
Tifa scoffed, pivoting as Aerith motioned to stand behind her to press a kiss into her forehead. It's a flu.
And I am actually dying.
Ugh. She groaned, lamenting as she burrowed her face into the soft fabric of the bathing gown that Tifa was wearing, dropping her arms around her waist and pulling her in. Tifa sighed, adjusting her stance to accommodate supporting Aerith as she leaned into her, though Aerith heard the smile in her wife's voice. No, you're due for another round of meds. Begrudgingly, Aerith opened her eyes as Tifa emptied the last of the soup into the bowl, wincing as the serving spoon scraped against the bottom of the metal pot. Tifa peeled Aerith's arms from her, grasping onto her upper arms to steer her into the chair opposite the forlorn Cloud.
Sit.
Aerith slumped into it. Tifa rummaged into the pockets of her gown, procuring the foil containing the medication. Aerith held her hand out flat and popped the pills into her mouth, accepted the water to wash them down, because she knew it would at least be 20 minutes before she'd feel the minimal effects of the medicine. Not that it made much difference to the discomfort running amok. She hated being sick, but this was downright misery. Tifa pulled out the chair next to her, setting 2 bowls down on the table.
You walk down here just fine. I'm not going to feed you, too,
Tifa said between mouthfuls of broth, swaying into her side with the buoyancy. At least she was feeling better. Aerith smiled feebly, stirring the soup and dropping the spoon into the bowl.
Oh, come on.
Tifa's mouth agape, setting her utensil down and reaching for the spoon, swaying the spoonful before her face.
Here comes the high wind,
she sang, turning the situation back on Aerith and beating her at her own game. Aerith accepted it, though swatted her away. The barmaid's hand found its way to the nape of her neck, massaging into the sweat-dampened curls of her hair as Aerith downed the fluid. On any other day, she'd reciprocate playfully. Today, though, she was a little too ill and miserable to do anything other than sag onto Tifa's shoulder. Tifa rubbed her back, working on the aches that had formed from being bedridden and helping any other pains that the cold brought fade away. Aerith coughed into Tifa's robe. Aw, is that your special way of thanking me, or... Tifa replied with a wry smile. So, some people may go, wait a minute, Tifa and Aerith a couple? Yeah, well, it's fanfiction. Guess what? Fanfiction is like, what was that show with Drew Carey? Where the points don't matter sometimes. I can't actually remember the show. I've never watched it. Whose line is it anyway? There we go. Yeah. Sometimes canon doesn't matter. Obviously, that's just how this story worked out. I thought it was nice, so it popped up on my list. Also, it's nice to kind of get those things where you have a little bit of differences from canon. Why? Because you get to see how it kind of plays out. How you see the story as canon. You go through it, you know it, obviously. Well, if one thing changes, how does that change everything after it? And fanfiction writers are pretty good at that. So that's one of the reasons I like it. And I think this kind of brought in a single moment of that. So hopefully you enjoyed it too. Links down below. Enjoy them. Go through them. Give a review of everything. Ta-ta for now.